Information is super easy to get, but insight, not so much. If you can tie product to problems and give me insight into how that's going to help me solve the problem, that's what I need a person for. Organizations, a lot of them are looking for the next rock star. You've got this big lump in the middle. These were people that were doing fine. If we raise them up, the whole bell curve. Make sure that there is a technical interface between the AI and the human so that it feels seamless to the consumer. Without the context of a human, it sounds like a robot.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now let's get it started. Hey folks, we are back with another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I'm your host as usual. And in our studio, we have Lynn Hidy. How are you today, ma'am?
I am fabulous. Thank you.
I'm so glad you were here. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic conversation. I think you are going to enjoy it, audience. So before we get into it, let's do this. If you haven't done it already, I'd be grateful if you would like to subscribe and hit the bell so that you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. And without further ado, let's get to it. So Lynn, again, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We would love it if you would share with us who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
So I am Lynn Hidy, and I am the founder and strategist behind Up Your Telesales. And I will say that the big thing that I do for other people is I help them understand what's happening with their sales team and how to make it better without driving yourself crazy.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of not driving myself crazy as a sales leader.
How about this? We lose our sense of humor and we lose our equilibrium often in sales, right? There's so much going on and it gets crazy. So let's not do that anymore.
I love it. I love it. What got you into this line of work?
So decades ago, I did the whole corporate ladder thing, right? Like I'm a good corporate citizen and I, moved it from an inbound marketing kind of sales development rep into a territory, into a team leader, right? I'm climbing the corporate ladder. What I didn't know until it was too late, I like to say, was I'm childless by choice in my life. I hate to say it, but managing salespeople is a lot like having children, apparently, and it was not for me either. So why am I, if I don't have them in my real life, why would I want to spend 40 plus hours a week acting the same way as a parent does? So the luck for me was that I worked for someone who said, okay, you are a fabulous coach. You are a fabulous trainer. You are really good at that part of the job. Do you like that part of the job? And I really did. Mm-hmm. So he was willing to say, hey, why don't you do that? I'll get someone else to manage these people. So I turned that into a corporate job and then turned it into a company.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Congratulations on that. What is that big thing that you've come to realize, about telesales in particular?
So number one, right? I started out where really was the phone. That was what you had, right? Mm-hmm. There was no internet once upon a time, and people dropped catalogs, right? Sent things in the mail. I actually remember the first time the company I worked for got a faxed purchase order rather than one in the mail, and the owner called his lawyer to make sure it was a legally binding document, right? Like, wow. So the way we have communicated with our customers has changed significantly in the last 30 years, right? But the same thing is true, which is, all right, there's a group of salespeople out there that whether you're inbound or outbound, right? Like that's how you find business, either following up on leads or going out and searching for them and hunting. There's a subset of salespeople who are never physically going to see their customers, right? So they are inside salespeople. And while we always used the phone at the beginning, I mean, now we've got video, right? I can see you today. Your audience can see us, and we can leverage that when we're communicating with our customers. We also have social media and the internet and all sorts of different tools. So the tools have changed significantly. But the one thing that hasn't changed is that it's people connecting with people. Because yes, I can use AI tool or a search engine tool to find out information now, right? When I started, like, people needed us for information, like specs on things. They called you because they needed to know those things. Well, now they're looking for that human interaction, right? Tie what you do to what I actually need to be successful in my job, in my business. And that hasn't gone away.
I want to dig into that a little bit more. I mean, if we listen to what people are selling us today, we can get rid of our entire inside sales team. We can have automated calls and robots and, customer intake and that sort of thing. But it sounds to me like you're saying that, I'm going to use an old fashioned term, that's a bunch of baloney.
Well, and how about this? I think that people don't want a salesperson calling them about, I'm going to call it stuff, right? If you're calling me about product, I don't need to talk to you. I can find that information, right? I can find speeds and feeds. I can find out details about a policy. I can find out that kind of information for myself. And, right, all of the studies are now saying most people are talking to salespeople way further into the buying process. Well, because information is super easy to get.
Yeah.
But insight, not so much, right? So if you can tie the product to problems I have and give me insight into how that's going to help me solve the problem, that's what I need a person for.
Yeah. Give me an example of that. Give me a story behind that.
All right. So I'll use technology because there are a lot of tech, right? People that are saying, hey, I don't need salespeople. You can self-serve, right? So, okay. So great. I can run my own demo in a lot of worlds, but I need a salesperson to talk to me about the specifics of my business and how I can tie it into the CRM, right? So full disclosure, I'm a user of Membrane as my CRM, and I'll just use that as an example, right? I can set myself up, right? Like they have a whole process where I'm self-serving and I'm watching a video and doing it myself. But there comes a point when I say, okay, but I want to do this, right? Like this is the problem I'm trying to solve for my business using this CRM. I know the pieces and parts and the bits and bytes, but I don't know how is it going to do this for me? And that's where I talk to Jen, I talk to Pam, and they're like, oh, and they can tell me the story, right? They take my stuff, somebody else's stuff, and their product and put it together.
And that's beyond what like a Claude or ChatGPT can do, or
yeah. And how about this? Sure, if I'm a prompt engineer, it might be able to tell me, but it's way less work for me to talk to a human.
So,
and and I'll tell you the flip side of it, right? I don't know about you, but if I have a problem with somebody's product, I don't want to talk to AI.
I'm with you.
Right? Right. So I think that from a customer service perspective, sure. Like I have no problem self-serving for paying my bill or, right? Like the day-to-day workings. I'll do that on my own. In fact, I'd rather, because I think I can probably do it faster without talking to a person than I can with. But if I am frustrated, number one, I want another person to empathize and tell me that it's okay. I also have less brain power when I'm frustrated, angry, annoyed than I do to problem solve when I'm fine. Like right now, you and I probably on our own would be great at problem solving. If you've tried to make something work for 45 minutes and you can't, and there's no person to talk to, and it doesn't quite understand, you don't even know how to explain the problem you're having to AI, to that little, like, wait, I have to articulate something. No, you talk to me.
Yes.
Right. We'll figure it out faster.
Yes. I'm like having a PTSD moment, like right now, like going through tech support and, going through these endless loops of.
Right. I mean, something as simple as I was on vacation. I have Easy Pass. Apparently, the credit card on my Easy Pass was not refilling. Okay, I'm on vacation. So I grab my Easy Pass and, try to log in using the account number. I don't remember my password. I'm not at home, so I don't even have I don't even remember an email I used to set this up, right?
Uh-huh.
I just wanted a person to to take my credit card information, update it in the system for me, and I could go on with my vacation.
Right.
By the way, is not how it worked out. I did get it sorted, but there was no person to talk to. So
I'm sorry.
But again, right? Like I think if I had talked to you and you're like, you could log in because you're in, then all you're doing is updating the credit card. Boom, I'm done. I'm back on my vacation.
Exactly. It's interesting how, companies, and I don't know how we're making these decisions, but how companies, take people out of that loop, so quickly and so aggressively. It's just like, I need to speak to a person for what, please articulate your question differently. We need to route you to the right. It's like, come on. As you said, I've already been working on this for 45 minutes. Now I'm really frustrated because you're giving me another set of questions. It's like, come on.
No, I do. I think you say, why do they do that? Right? They believe it's going to be cheaper. Is it? That remains to be seen, in my opinion. But I also think that everybody else is doing it, so I should do it going on.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because if you hear people talk about how great it works, I think there's a huge disconnect between if you read what people are saying on their reviews of companies that have done this versus what the founders and the leadership is saying about how it's working. I think there's a disconnect there as well. Right? It sounds great, right? They go out and do their TED Talk, right? On how awesome it is to automate all of this stuff and get rid of the people. Well, but then if you ask their customers how happy they are with how this new thing works, I do believe that the huge disconnect is I do need to talk. If I want to talk to a person, there needs to be a competent, articulate human for me to talk to.
Let's not go down that rabbit trail. But yes, I agree. So, I mean, all of this says to me that the role of the inside salesperson, the role has changed. There's a different set of responsibilities and expectations. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to talk to it a little differently. I think the problem is people aren't figuring out what that role looks like in their organization and doing everything they need to get the humans who are now working for them to do the new role. Right? Okay. Yes. Let me self-serve on a chat. Okay, great. So you don't need a human to help someone self-serve on the chat for the most part.
Right.
Make sure that there is a technical interface between the AI and the human so that it feels seamless, right, to the consumer. What part of that role do you want an inside salesperson to do? How do you want me, what is the new role for your inside salespeople? And again, define and articulate when someone needs a human. So they need a human because they're frustrated, right? We already talked about that. But they also need a human to tie other customer stories to their story.
Okay.
They need a human to feel valued. Like we haven't gotten to the point, right? A friend of mine says it's not artificial intelligence yet, it's assisted intelligence, which I really like. So we're not mimicking empathy and understanding and kindness with these tools yet. Someday, if you and I have this conversation in 5 years, I may have a very different answer, right? But there's still that. And there is still, from an outbound sales effort, I gotta tell you, calling people, it still works. Does it take more dials to reach a human? It absolutely does. Do you need to have a multiple touch strategy, right? Yes, we all know that, right? What does that look like? I still, though, believe picking up the phone many times is the fastest way to a sale.
So how are they? But I feel like they need to be equipped differently, to make these outbound calls. I feel like there's, as you mentioned, there are fewer responses, based on, the size of a list or whatever. So how do we, as inside salespeople, truly become successful? What are your thoughts on that?
So let's talk about it from a outbound effort, prospecting, right? That's because that's kind of where that's where the hardest part of any sales job, right? The prospecting part. So let's for a second just say, okay, so outbound prospecting, how do I successfully navigate the fact that less people are answering the phone? Again, it ties back to it needs to sound like it's about them, right? So the skill set piece is that you need to give me, the inside salesperson, the tools I need for it to feel and be personalized outreach. Now, I will tell you, sure, I'd love it to be one-to-one. Like I always know who Rick is and I'm calling him specifically, but from a volume perspective, I don't think that that's doable necessarily. So they need to understand about segmentation of their list. Like, okay, and who do they connect with? How can we tie a company's ideal customer profile to a salesperson's ideal customer profile so that it's a good fit and they're targeting people they're going to be successful with when they talk to them? And I'll just give you an example. It's very different if my market is manufacturing and I'm talking to people who are in a plant, process control driven, and I do really well with that. And the person sitting next to me is much more corporate and is having great success with law firms and selling the same stuff into those very different markets. Okay, let them, right? Give salesperson A list full of manufacturing prospects because they obviously know the language, know the problems they're facing, can tie things together. So I can make a bunch of outbound calls to different companies, but because they all look similar, we know that the problems they face are probably very similar. So the language I speak in is the language of their industry, the language of the job they do, and the language of the problems that they face. Which also sounds significantly different from the person sitting next to me who's calling on law firms, right?
Do you see with this? Do you see hyper personalization with this outbound calling? So I think about it from like we talk about it from an industry perspective, but even getting down to perhaps like some level of persona. I mean, just given the prevalence of data that we have out.
Yeah, yes, there's a right. So then we get to that fine line of, okay, how do we balance volume and hyper personalization? And where that comes down to is, I think it becomes hyper personalized once I know, and we can talk about how like knowing next. Like I now know that is a good target for me for this thing. Now I can hyper personalize it because I'm not wasting time on somebody who isn't an ideal customer.
Right.
And a lot of times, I will tell you, I don't know that because of the psychographics until I talk to a human. Right? Like demographics, we can do all the time, but can I really understand how you feel about something if I don't have a conversation with you?
Right. Are there ways to find that information? I mean, what comes to mind is like, how Facebook, captures all kind of, psychographic information about people. Is that a source, or are there other places, other ways we can get that type of information if it would make sense? I mean, if it's a cost-effective venture.
So all of my customers are business to business, right? Like my personal target market is businesses selling to businesses. So I'm going to say I don't have enough expertise on the consumer side to know. I think companies know that internally. Like Facebook knows the answer, Amazon knows the answer, right? Like that's why you keep getting, hey, if you watch these things, you probably are going to like to watch these things, or you bought this stuff, other people have bought, right? I don't know that there is a place to go get that information, but I bet specific industries have places that can get like that, like for like. I still don't know. Can you trust information about what somebody thinks about something or their attitude around, right? So I'm just going to use an example of used cars. If we're in a room with 100 people, there's a percentage of those people who would never buy a used car no matter what. And there's a percentage of people who would never buy a new car no matter what.
Yeah.
And then there are people that, okay, if money were not an object, I would buy X. And the interesting thing about that is some of those people might be motorheads like me who are going to go, well, if I have unlimited funds, I'm going to buy, a 1967 Jaguar, and I'm going to have two of them because one of them's always going to be in the shop. Right? So someone else is going to be like, well, if I have unlimited money, I'm going to buy a brand new whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how good we are at figuring that kind of attitude or opinion thing out without actually talking to somebody.
Interesting. It's interesting because, I look at things, through AI, and it's like, it seems like, we should be able to, capture more of that information, even capture information about ourselves that we don't necessarily lead with, or we don't, our blind spots sometimes to help us develop what our sales program looks like. I mean, it seems like, even outbound, we should be able to develop our own strategy based on our own personality. And as you said, our industry expertise and that sort of thing. But, even the way that we talk with people, it's like some people might be better speaking with, an executive members of the executive team with advanced degrees, et cetera, where other people might be more comfortable working with, people that may not have achieved that much education, or, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that part of the selling process at this stage?
So I'm going to say something that's going to sound funny. If you have the luxury, sure. Like, okay, let's figure out who the best team of people, right, is going to be to close business with an ideal customer. Yeah.
That could be an interesting conversation. I just keep going back to like
that's okay.
It's this whole idea around the AI assisted sales. It's like, we started talking about like replacement, but AI gives us so much more information, the potential for so much more information to aid differently, so that we can be better.
So how about this? So I have an engagement that is going on right now, and the first thing I am doing, step one was I said, okay, we need a better way for them to research. So I have created an AI agent for this company where it's, okay, here's 100 accounts that are in a salesperson's name with their website. Go out and, for their specific product, what they do, right? Like, what's our best play? Based on what you can find, publicly available information, it is telling us, okay, what is the potential that they could ever buy from the company, and who are the humans that you can find out there on the internet who would be in charge of the things, who needs what we do, who buys what we sell, right? So if nothing else, they're starting with a target list of people that could be their ideal customers, and it scores itself, right? Like, okay, so we think here, and there's a ranking. So it's not ranking against each other, it's a ranking against publicly available information. So, okay, anybody 80% or, scores an 80 to 100. We haven't found 100, by the way. We've only gotten into the 90s. But, right, like, okay, let's call these people first. And then it's saying, okay, and this is the thing that they're trying to do based on their mission, like what the company does, that fits best with this product set. And this is what the messaging is going to look like.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, one of the salespeople was like, where were you 6 months ago? I'm like, it wasn't engaged yet. Sorry. Right. So there's that, like, there's the assistance of who is the highest value target for us from an organization perspective based on what we do and the organizations that are in my account base.
Does that mean we go after fewer? So I'm thinking from a perspective of
we go after fewer.
Yeah.
Yes.
But okay. Awesome. So here's an interesting question. We talked about your bell curve theory in terms of sales performance. How does this conversation, we're talking about AI, incorporating AI, we're talking about empowering people differently in sales. how does this impact, if it does at all? Well, I'm going to need you to explain, of course, but how does this impact your thinking around the bell curve?
So the bell curve, my bell curve manifesto, as I like to call it, because I feel like it's a manifesto, and it's very different than how other people look at organizations, right? So when I talk to organizations, a lot of them are looking for the next rock star.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just based on the math, you can't have all rock stars because the definition of a rock star then changes. So if we're thinking about it, right, there's that middle. If you look at a bell curve, you got, look, easy math. We got 10 salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them are at the top, and you're having strategic conversations, and they're demanding your attention because they're working deals, they're closing business, right? And you love spending time with them. And then 2 at the bottom, your HR department is making you spend time with them. And there's a lot of what feels like wasted coaching out time.
Yeah.
That's documentation that's going on. So you end up with these 6 people in the middle that are doing okay. They're fine, right? They're at 92 to 97% of their target. They're not above it, or sometimes they are and sometimes they're not, right? But you leave them alone because you can.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my belief is that if we raise them up, the whole bell curve goes up. And if you've got this big lump in the middle that all of them are making goal 1 more quarter a year, or they're setting 1 more appointment a week, but there's 6 of them. So all of them are making 1 more quarter a year. All of them are setting 1 more appointment. That's an exponential increase in production from a sales perspective. So making them a little bit better is going to have a wild impact on your team and how the sales production is.
Yeah. Do you see? So when we look at improving performance, do you see a different approach now than you would have taken, a year or 2 ago?
So I think that what AI allows us to do is remove roadblocks to people's success differently than we absolutely could 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that example of it's doing the research to determine the best potential accounts.
Right.
And when I was working with the sales leader, I'm like, look, I haven't timed it. I kind of like in all the playing I had done with the tool, like I do it and then I go do something else and then I come back and it's done, right? Like that's the beauty of AI. I don't have to be there for it.
Right.
And he's like, well, I timed it and it was 8.5 minutes. So in 8.5 minutes, it took 100 accounts and scored them for probability of success.
It's a lot of time.
Well, like I can't even imagine, imagine how much time it would have taken a sales human to go out, look at the website, read the documentation, find all the info, right? Like figure out the correlation between the mission of that organization and what you do. Like that's thinking work, right?
Yeah.
Versus AI turned it into data.
Yeah. And then you can better match that data, match those accounts to your inside sales team. And then you can, I guess, going beyond that, I mean, we can evaluate every salesperson's call, using AI, and then give them points on how they can improve, their whole process, right?
There are companies out there now that are using AI. You upload a call recording.
Yeah.
Now, it's not magic, people. So you do have to give it okay, what are they supposed to be doing on the call? What does a good call look like? Right? There's setup involved.
Yes.
But it's taking someone's recorded call and saying, okay, here's the script that the salesperson is using.
Yeah.
Again, we could talk about scripts for an hour, but right? How did they do against the script? How did they do against the call objective, whatever the call objective is, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many, I'm working with a salesperson right now on asking more open-ended questions about someone's answer.
Okay.
Well, so I listen to the calls still myself because I think, again, right, tone, inflection, it's still not great at, right? It can tell empathy and compassion just based on words, but I still want to hear what it sounded like on both sides.
Sure.
But it's counting for me.
It's counting
right?
what?
Rick asked 9 open-ended questions following information he was given. Okay, this is somebody who wasn't very good at that. So if there's 9 now, just from a count perspective, that's 9 more than they were doing a month ago.
So how do you?
So they get it, right? Like that helps you know if they're getting it. So I'm using an AI tool to check all of the things, and I'm also listening to the calls. So I'm making sure that I am validating that I agree with what the AI tool is telling me. But I can then take 9 calls, which I used to, right? So back to time, it used to take me 4 listen throughs to do what I considered a good job as the coach, right? Some of these calls are 20 minutes. That's 80 minutes. Okay, now I have an AI tool that will judge the call against the script and against the coaching criteria that I'm currently using with individual salespeople. I get that. I'm listening to calls twice.
So you're more
sometimes
efficient.
Once, right? Like sometimes I can listen to it once and I can tell, like I'm making my notes. I always listen once without looking at the tool. So I put everything in and then I start listening. But okay, so now it's taking me 20 minutes plus the AI tool. So it's taking me a half an hour to do a call review rather than 2 hours.
Why do you listen to the call first without the AI info?
Because I truly believe that I'm like, if you are looking at how I don't care what the tool is. If you are looking at how a tool scores somebody, it is influencing your belief around it.
Yeah.
Right. So I want my expertise, right? My years of experience, my understanding of the person I've been coaching and what the organization is trying to accomplish with them calling somebody. Like I'm a piece of that.
Yeah, that's a really, really important thing to say. I mean, I think this is the fallacy that, we're facing right now. People feel like, we can just replace, people with AI, but, it's the insight and the creativity and the connections and that sort of thing that we make as humans, aren't being made by AI. AI is a tool. It's an assistant. It can help to provide us with more information, different insights or whatever. I can't tell you how many times it's just like, hey, I never thought of that. But we've got to be in the loop. We've got to be.
And how about this? The thing it told you that you're like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, or I hadn't thought of that, had to include all of the things you had thought about to get to there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, without the person, and sometimes, right, you and I probably both use AI tools a lot more than other people. We've been training it, right? We also have content out there in the universe that it knows what we sound like, what we like. Okay, for a salesperson who doesn't have all this content, it's not going to sound like you. You have to make it sound like you. For a sales leader, it's not going to know what's important to you as the leader of a team until you teach it what's important to you as a leader of a team.
Yeah, makes sense.
You are the context, and without the context of a human, it sounds like a robot.
It sounds like a robot. That's the thing. I hate getting. I shouldn't. It's probably a strong word, but I hate getting like these robot emails. That sound absolutely brilliant. You're just like, no, it's a robot.
Well, and so to that hyper personalization, right? Okay. I mean, I could pull up some, right? Lynn, what you said about blank was really insightful. Okay, I have 7 or 8 emails that start like that.
Right.
Okay, the first one I got stroked my ego a little bit. And I was like, oh, I'll read more. The second one I got, I was like, this must be a new thing. The third one I got, it's a new thing, right? So I think that hyper personalization by a robot isn't personalized.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have seen the frameworks over and over, and it's just like, oh, come on, please. What's you started down the bunny trail about scripting. It was interesting. I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about being able to use scripting during a call, and they're using AI to help answer questions or help frame some of their responses. What are you seeing? What's in terms of scripting?
So I believe that you need to start with a company script. What is important to the company, And then you need to help salespeople make it sound like them. I use the same example in every training class that I do. I went to a training class and the trainer was talking about the knock-on effect. Well, I was lost because I have no idea what the knock-on effect is until a break when I could say, okay, you lost me like 20 minutes ago. Like, what's the knock-on effect? Well, turns out in Australia, it's just a phrase that people use. It's the bad things that happen when bad things happen. So you get a flat tire on your way to work and you're late for work. Being late for work is the knock-on effect. I'm never going to say that. I didn't even know what it meant, right? So that's right. So you need to give salespeople, back to our language choice, right? Like my education, my experience, how much I read changes my vocabulary. So let the salespeople take the corporate script, turn it into their script, then have them use it and actually change it. Because I was working with a salesperson the other day. We had come up with this question that she thought was great. It actually turned out we had to switch it. So she tried it for a week. And she's like, Lynn, I am tripping all over this question. The information we're trying to get, I love the question to get the information I need, but it's not natural. It feels awkward. So I had her say it out loud. And I'm like, what if we did it this way instead? And all of a sudden she could say it, right?
Yeah.
But it took a week of her trying it one way and realizing, ooh, this isn't quite right. And then us talking about, okay, how can we get the information but say it a different way? So there's that piece of the scripting that I think is important. Like, let me hyper personalize my script while still getting the corporate message across.
Yeah.
I love the idea that I can use AI and it'll pull from an internal company database. I have customers that like have an AI that's pulling internally from information. So if a customer asks me a question about information, right, specs or what, it gives me the answer. So Dell, their tech support team now has access via AI to every document that Dell's ever created, basically, right? So if you call Dell tech support, that tech support person has more information than a human could consume. But if the human types in the question that you ask, it can pull up the answer. Right? So that kind of interaction is really valuable to move the sales process along more quickly, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've talked at a high level, you know, kind of theoretical level on a number of the things that you've done for companies and how you work with companies. What's a great turnaround story that you'd love to tell?
So it's an old one, but I'm going to use it anyway. There were a group of salespeople who raised their hand and said, I'm not doing as well as I want. And a company hired me to coach them. And they had a great data guy at the time. And so he actually took people of the same tenure, the same experience level. He tracked the people who raised their hand for coaching and the people who did not participate in the coaching. And I love the fact that coaching itself, and I will say, and having people who raise their hand for it, I think that's an important distinction. Like, they weren't forced to come.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 17% increase in their sales.
Nice.
Over the 6 months.
And
the two things there, right, is number one, they wanted to be they were coachable. They wanted to improve. And number two, that just giving them that attention, that, that was actually where the bell curve manifesto started coming from. These were people that were doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
But spending time getting them out of their own way in some, right? Because sometimes that's what coaching does for people, helps them get out of their own way, improved their sales, demonstratively over people that did not take advantage of that and were not coachable. I really think that there's a sales assessment, objective management group has a sales specific assessment that people do. And they talk about figure it out factor and coachability. And if I had to only look at two things on their entire assessment, high scores on those two things, I think, are leading indicators of sales success. If you can find a curious person, right? Curiosity is definitely a sales trait, right? And people who are curious tend to figure things out. So those tend to go hand in hand, in my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I can't understate, the value of coaching, because a lot of times it's those little things. It's like, hey, you could do this a little bit better or differently. Did you realize that you were X, Y, Z? So that's absolutely beautiful. One last question for you. So the name of the podcast, of course, is The Relentless Pursuit of Winning. And most people can define winning, very easily. They know, kind of what they're going for. The challenge that we have sometimes is maintaining that relentless pursuit. What would you advise to someone, to our audience, to encourage them to maintain that relentless pursuit?
So I am a very diligent person when it comes to things like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that you need to figure out what your habit needs to look like. And again, I tell people all the time, look, I am freakishly organized. Your life may not look like mine. It probably doesn't, right? I have lists about lists. I love to cross stuff off. So I get pleasure out of crossing things off a list. Well, relentless pursuit. Okay. So I have 15 minutes on my to-do list in the morning to read something I've never read before. Because I love crossing it off my list when I'm done. So I get dopamine hits crossing stuff off lists. So figure out what your habit needs to be to give you the ability to relentlessly pursue what you want. And I actually was just yesterday talking to a team, and they said, well, what if you miss once? I'm like, once is not a deal breaker. 2 days in a row for me, okay, that's becoming sloppy. And 2 days in a row makes not doing something the third day easier.
Yeah.
Right? So I would say that number one, figure out what your habit is. And the second thing, I always wanted to be self-sufficient, right? And in 2024, I found a study about accountability partners. And I realized it was crazy for me to try to do it by myself because the probability of completing a goal, if you decide you have one, right, you set a goal for yourself, is 10%. If you consciously are like, I am going to do this, it goes up to 25. If you decide a timeline attached to it, it goes up to 40%. If you set a plan, it's 50. But that's still coin flip territory, people. Like, that's like, okay, am I going to hit this or not? Which is not enough for me. So then if you commit to someone else that you're going to do it, it goes up to 65%. So at least, like, if I tell Rick, I am going to do this thing. This is what, like, I'm going to do this thing. This is when I want to get it done. This is my plan for doing it. 65%. But if you and I set up a meeting with each other where I have to report back to you on whether or not I do it, 95% chance that you are going to make that goal.
That's golden. That's golden.
Why do we, so if you really want to win something, you need not my study, right? It's attributed to the Association for Talent Development is the organization. I had to look at it. So I didn't want to misquote, that, not my study, their study, right? All right. So if you want to win, get an accountability partner.
Yeah. I go back to, a coach. I've got a performance advisor, and that's exactly what we do. We meet like every couple of weeks, and I've got goals, and we go over them. And it was so cool. In our meeting yesterday, she's like, "Did you get this done?" I'm like, "Yeah, done." And I think that because, to your point, because I was accountable to her, I was, I didn't keep pushing it off of my to-do list, which is ever growing.
Well, right? And because you knew you had a meeting and you were going to have to say whether or not you got it done or not. Now, in the meeting I was in yesterday, somebody was like, well, for me, that's going to be ego. Like, I want you to, right? I need you to tell me that I did a great job. So he was saying, like, I like the idea of an accountability partner because I want someone to tell me I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Well, then someone else said, oh, but how I look at it is that I don't want to disappoint them. And that's very different. Like the mental game that those two salespeople were talking about, is a very different mental game, right? Like, I don't want you to be disappointed in me, so I'm going to do it, versus I want you to tell me I'm doing a good job are two different things. So that's, I think it's also important to know what you personally are looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree.
And,
I think I wanted a little bit of both.
Well, and again, right? Like, great, right?
Whatever
And
works,
it might
right?
be, right? Whatever works, right? There was a woman who I met to work out. Well, I was never not going to go if Terry was going to be there. Like, that's rude, right? And it would have been a rash of what, like, forever. But very easy for me not to work out if I'm not meeting Terry.
I think I've got that habit. I feel badly if I miss a day.
Right? So
Habits.
Right? Again, back to the, like, figure out what habits you can leverage that you already have.
That's interesting that you already have. That's a good thought. That's a good thought. It's kind of, it's harder to start a new habit, just something that, hey, I'm going to start doing this thing every day. And I remember, when I first started going to the gym, it was just like, once a week, and it was twice a week, it was 3 days a week. And then, up over time versus, I think a long time ago, I went for like 3 days in a row and I was like so sore and I couldn't move. And then I'd go back for a month.
Yep. And how about this? LinkedIn is the same way. I tell people all the time, okay, don't go on LinkedIn and try to post every day.
Yeah.
Post once a week.
Yeah.
Consistently. Pick a day, pick a time, go to LinkedIn, do the thing, right? Okay. Once that becomes a habit, then add a second day, then add a third day. And maybe you will never add more than, like, 3 days a week is better than at the gym is better than 0.
100%. You have a giveaway for our audience, the salesperson value calculator. You want to talk about that?
So when we think about salespeople, one of the things that we also look at, right, as like when we're leading a team, too often the leadership of a company is only looking at the number. Well, one of the things about looking at the number is that's based on past behavior. Like, that result is a lagging is a lagging indicator. It's not a leading indicator. It's not, looking at whether or not somebody hit goal does not lead them to the next success.
Right.
It tells you what they did before. So one of the things about the salesperson value calculator is that you're looking at both results and behaviors, because they need the behaviors to keep getting the results. And as we talked about earlier, sometimes the behaviors you need are changing. So if you don't change how you're judging someone's performance based on the changes you've got a problem as well. Also almost never take into consideration what I like to call the PIA. Are they a pain in the ass?
Yes. We have to put that into proposals sometimes.
Add 10%, right? Because this. So, but with salespeople, it's a divisor. Their value to your organization is less if they are a disruptor, if they bring the mood of every other person on their team down, if they are undermining other people's success.
Yeah.
And I have seen top performers, in quotes, who really needed to be fired.
Yeah. Yep. Seen that.
And now leadership is like, but who's going to do the number? Well, almost always within that I've seen, like, in the next 6 months, everyone else's performance increases and you don't even miss their not hitting the number. First couple of months are usually rough, but right? Like, within 6 months, again, back to that bell curve, the entire team has raised up. So that's the thing about the salesperson value calculator. It is, right, results plus behaviors divided by the PIA.
How does someone get access to that?
So the easiest way, I get to also mention my book. So if you go to masteringinsidesalesleadership.com, scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's a link for the salesperson value calculator.
Awesome. And your book, how accessible is your book?
It's easy. Well, mine's just on my desk, but so my audience, inside sales leaders, are primarily listening to it. So if you want to listen to me for 5.5 hours, read my book to you, anywhere you get your audiobooks, you can find it. So that's easy. If you would like a hard copy or Kindle version, go to Amazon.
Awesome. Fantastic. And do you have your wonderful sense of humor as you read the book?
So yes, absolutely, because it is the subtitle is your Get It Done Leadership Success Guide, because that's what we want to do, get it done.
Absolutely. Let's get it done. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Believe it or not, my phone number is on my LinkedIn profile. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm an inside salesperson. Got to give you my phone number. So find me on LinkedIn, click connect, tell me you heard Rick and I talk, and that will absolutely get you a connection.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show. I enjoyed our conversation.
Me too, Rick. It was great to have the opportunity to chat.
And folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We'll catch you next time.